Heed my words, all classes of men, you greater and lesser children of Heimdall. You summoned me, Odin, to tell all that I recall of the oldest deeds of gods and men. I remember the giants born so long ago, in those ancient days they raised me. I remember 9 giantesses and the sea from which Yggdrasil spread. It was in the beginning. It was Ymir's time. There was no sand, no sea, no cooling waves, no earth, no sky, no grass, just Ymir. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the beginning of the Voluspa. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Dancing Goats and Angry Clouds show. Tonight we are talking about the Voluspa. We are talking about Ragnarok and prophecy. Join us as we dive deep into the hidden meaning behind the Voluspa. All right.
Now, before we start, just for Borton, since he couldn't make it today, horse fornication.
Horse fornication, everyone.
Yep.
Remember, have your horse fornication. Once a
Be
day.
like Loki. Oh yeah, and have yourself a horse child.
Why do you think I changed your name to Volsi?
Yes, you did. Yay, I'm now horse penis.
Horse penis.
Actually, you are a severed and dried and preserved horse penis.
Even better.
All right. So, folks, here we go. Now, with the Voluspa, it is
No, bro, not one time.
This guy. Down the floor. That one.
That guy? Right, that guy.
Oh shit, well I'm getting fucked from 3 angles.
All right, folks.
For you, Corey.
Let's get down to it now. So the Voluspa is essentially the prophecy of the seeress, of a Volva that was raised from the dead by Odin in order to gain wisdom. Within the Voluspa, it tells the story not only of the creation of Midgard and how the gods came to be, but it also tells of the war with the Vanir. It tells of the coming of the giants and the destruction of Asgard and days of Ragnarok. It tells us how, in the end times, after Ragnarok, Baldur will be reborn, and the world will know peace and plenty. But before we continue any further, I must make a point about that, because the idea that after Ragnarok, the world will be in a new peaceful age of enlightenment does not fit with what we know about the Norse people, about the pre-Christian Scandinavians. The belief system of these peoples would be more likely to have believed Ragnarok to have just been the end of one cycle and the beginning of another, and that after Ragnarok it would just be a rebirth of the world as events come out and play again.
Jesus
Before. A slight difference, maybe not. But the idea of a peaceful world that with everlasting perfection and love and peace is not a Norse idea. That is absolutely a Christian idea that we can probably blame on Snorri Sturluson and other medieval monks like him who changed the original myth that is true to their Christian narratives to try and show that the pre-Christian Scandinavians were in fact Christians before they were Christians. So now that my little wild tangent is done, let's go ahead and get back to talking about the Voluspa. So, in the Voluspa, it talks about how the gods would sit upon their shiny thrones, their golden thrones, whenever they had to come to an important decision. And what this tells us is that when they gathered together at Yggdrasil, they had a specific place in which that they would conduct their meetings, that they would hold their courts. And Yggdrasil is where they built their temples, their shrines, their workshops. They built Asgard around it. And in the end of times, after Ragnarok, Yggdrasil is still there. Asgard is gone, but Yggdrasil remains. It is in this grass upon this hill that they find golden chess pieces that they played with in the days before the giants destroyed Asgard. And I think that the fact that they find these chess pieces, these golden game pieces, which they would not have been chess pieces, they would have been nothing. Niflheim, a game similar to that. But in end times, afterwards, them finding these game pieces in the grass, to me it signifies that even though what was is gone, does not mean that it cannot be returned. And if you have any comments about that.
I'm trying to pull up the electronic version I have here since I don't have it physically.
I don't have it physically right now.
All right. Well, in that case, I have one more thing that I want to mention while we're talking about Yggdrasil. Right? When they're talking about the things that the gods created at Yggdrasil, they specifically mention temples and high shrines first. After that came the workshops, their treasures, and then their tongs and other tools. Now, I want to highlight the fact that they specify the tongs out of all the different tools that could have been mentioned. It is specifically a pair of tongs. And now these tongs are not like the salad tongs that you would find in the kitchen. These are a very special type of tongs that are very heavy duty, and they are for blacksmithing, for forging metal, for taking hot crucibles out of a fire so that you can cast pretty golden objects. The tongs are one of the most important tools for a blacksmith or a crafter. And the fact that they single out tongs within the Voluspa tells us just how high the team those tongs were held by those that made them.
Hey, Goat.
Yes.
Just a heads up, you might want to check your mic sensitivity.
Why?
Yeah.
You're pretty quiet over there.
Yeah, and there's this sort of like high pitch.
Background loop.
Yeah,
like there's a background
happening.
noise going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to hear everything you're saying. I heard tongs, and you were specifying about lots of tongs.
In a nutshell, it was that he likes the fact that tongs were the only tool specifically mentioned out of the tools that they had, like for the gods and whatnot, because tongs are one of the most important tools in a blacksmith shop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Also, I'm now hearing echo of ourselves.
Me too.
Now I'm not.
Sorry,
Thanks,
everyone,
Goat.
for the technical difficulties.
Hippity-doo-dah. Okay, it's fine.
All right. Can you guys hear me better now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds fine to me.
Awesome. All right. So, since oh hey, Isaiah's here. Hi Isaiah, welcome.
Hey, Isaiah. Welcome.
Hi, Isaiah.
At least you can hear him fine.
I
So-
guess me and you, Cheese, are just going deaf.
What?
Too much firefighting.
What? Huh?
What was that?
What do you say?
Huh?
What did you say? Did you say, oh yeah, it's time for Golden Corral?
All right. So back to our discussion on the Voluspa. Now, it doesn't really give us a whole lot of information about the cosmology, about the creation of Midgard and the universe. It doesn't really tell us much other than in the beginning, the only thing there was Ginnungagap, and everything else came after. But can we trust the words of the Voluspa, or should we take them with a grain of salt? Because while it has some information, it doesn't have a lot. We have other sources that also give us more information about the cosmology. So while it does say that in the beginning there was Ginnungagap, that is in contradiction to what some of the other stories say, where there was Muspelheim and Niflheim that were in existence at the same time. So when it comes to cosmology, I think that the Voluspa is not necessarily the best source to get the information from. However, the Voluspa is probably the best source for when it comes to information about Ragnarok. A good huge chunk of the Voluspa is just about about Ragnarok, about how Fenrir will break his bonds, how he's howling at the doors of hell, and then how he will break free. It talks about the wars between the Aesir and the Vanir, and how it all started with the murder of Gullveig. Everything that the Voluspa talks about is a step-by-step progression in the most simplistic form of what happens throughout the sagas. Some of the most important and key events can be summarized within the Voluspa. But when it comes to Ragnarok, we don't have a whole lot of information on what exactly Ragnarok is. What we do know is that in the end of days, Loki will escape the bonds that hold him, and that he will captain the ship that takes the giants to Asgard, that he will lead the giants in their war against the Aesir and the Vanir. Now, what information we do have on Ragnarok doesn't paint the same picture necessarily as what the Old Norse may have thought of it. Because again, we're reading a version of the Voluspa that was written down by a Christian monk hundreds of years after the Christian conversion.
Right.
Yup.
And yeah, sorry, we know we have dwarves because we have cheese right here.
Well, no, that's one of the parts I find very interesting about.
She doesn't have a beard.
Yeah.
Oh,
Look
yeah,
at her
that's
nostril.
right. That would be Odemir.
Look at her nostril
That would
hairs.
be Odemir.
Yeah. She doesn't have any nostril hairs that you can see.
Yeah.
But anybody who's ever read literally anything by Tolkien, if you read the Voluspa, especially some of these early stanzas where it talks about the dwarves, the names are going to sound pretty familiar. He mostly just copy pasted.
Gandalf and
Yeah, right.
Okay, so here, let me read you real quick the names of these dwarves. All right. Then all the gods went to their thrones, those holy, holy gods, and they came to a decision. They would make the lord of the dwarves out of Ymir's blood and his rotting limbs. Then they made Motsognir. He was lord of the dwarves. And next, they made Durin. They made many man-like little creatures, dwarves of the earth, and Durin named them. Nai and Nithi, Northri and Suthri, Ostri and Vestri, Althriolf, Dvalen, Biver, Baver, Bomber, Nori, An, and Anar, I, Njótvirnir, Veg and Gandalf, Vindolf, Thrain, Vec and Thorin, Thror, Vit and Lit, Nar, Nairath, Regan and Laspis. And then it goes on. There's Fili, Clivi, Fundin, Nali, Hepti, Vili, Hanar, Zvir, Frag, Hornberg, Freyg, Loni, Orven, Yari, Oakenshield. Then there's Dropnir, Dograthir, Har, Oxbury, Hleveng, Glory, Skirfir, Virfir, Skapith, I, Alf, Ingvi, Oakenshield, Fjalar, Frosty, Fifth, Ginnar. There's a fuck ton of dwarves.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's a
and
catalog.
Corey, I thought the Mormons were bad with having that many children.
Hey, you got to have a lot of craftsmen, okay?
Yeah,
gonna-
someone's
All
gotta-
right, fair enough.
You know,
someone's got to work the forge.
this is
someone's
their
gotta work the forge and build the walls and stuff.
this is the gods' industrial middle class. All right, that's what the dwarves are. Not exactly,
Yeah.
but the best metaphor I can think of.
Oh, absolutely. And yes, Isaiah, a goat was spitting bars.
Johans wants to work the forge. I say let him.
I feel that whenever I was forging, back when I was doing that, I haven't done it in a while because I don't have a forge at the moment, but would have been beneficial if I had sought the blessings of the dwarves before doing so. I might have had a bit more success and might not have burned myself with molten metal as many times as I did.
Well,
Yeah,
coming from a guy who did welding, I can say I have set my pants on fire on multiple occasions.
Yeah, you ever pour molten metal onto your foot?
I've
No.
had molten metal go through my pants.
Have you ever lit blood plasma on fire and been banned from doing certain things at work because you keep lighting plasma on fire?
Hey, listen, we don't talk
No.
about that
Okay,
stuff.
hold on. No, we have to burn him. He's a witch. Blood plasma is not flammable.
Oh, I disagree, buddy.
It actually is very flammable, buddy. It's a very good protein.
Actually, I'm well aware of that fact, but fuck you. I was trying to be funny.
I'm not the witch. I do the witch.
I'm so glad I've never had these issues.
Don't act like you're better than me, Chi.
Jeez, far better. Jeez, has better things to do than set blood plasma on fire. Cheese demands to put her own stuff on fire and bring it around the house like this, being like, "Oh fuck, I set it on
But
fire."
the thing is, at least Elder Feldman can read.
Isaiah pointed out a good little thing. And he says that he knows that the stories are just written events by humans to explain the interactions and personality of the gods. And I have to agree. Because while you can't take the Eddas and the sagas as being literal truth, because writing literal historical truth wasn't a concept until much more modern times. But
Right.
also, these stories may not be based off of actual events at all. They may just be based upon stories that were invented to teach morality or try to explain the experience that
Natural world.
people had with the deities, with the gods. And stories that try to paint a picture of the personalities of these gods that these people were encountering were like. Now, over time, these stories do change. And I think that as these stories change, our perception of the gods change as well. And when our perception of the gods change, our viewpoint of like who they are and what their personality is like changes, maybe they change. They align more with the way that we see them when they interact with us.
I swear, dog.
Right, and yeah, go. That's also kind of like how the one time we were talking to Boom, she even said where she comes from in the Netherlands, they don't have Frigg as a goddess. It's only Freya. Or am I mixing that up? Or is it only Frigg but no Freya?
I can't see like Freya not being part of it. That's very strange.
Freya
The
and
Germanic,
Frigg,
not the Norse.
they believe that Freya and Frigg are the same goddess.
Right.
Yeah,
'Cause,
but which one's
Freya
name is it?
literally translates to lady, and it's a title, not a name. So it's because like with Freyr, his actual name is Ingrid, not Freyr. Everybody calls him Freyr, but that's an honorific title.
Right.
He's not actually named Freyr. Just like Freya isn't actually named Freya. It's a title. It's an honorific. She is the divine lady. She's the
Right.
divine
Because
lady.
I
Freya.
remember having a conversation with her, and she said one of those two names aren't used where she lives when they're talking about the gods and goddesses because they don't see the difference between them.
Well, it's because of the Germanic versus Norse.
Actually,
changes.
it's more about the Icelandic versus non-Icelandic
Right.
interpretations because it was only in Iceland that they actually split off into being two separate goddesses. Everywhere else, they remained the same goddess. Well, because all of our sources basically, well, not all of them, but a vast majority of our sources come from Iceland. It is the Icelandic viewpoint that is adopted primarily by a lot of pagans.
Right.
Isaiah, Freya, and Frigg are not the same goddess because is specifically mentioned as being a Valkyrie, one of Odin's Valkyries, and one of Frigg's handmaidens.
Yeah. Although I would like to talk about
Odin is also not Freya or Frigg. Godvig was actually one of, I believe, the Vanya, and I think she was, I can't remember who exactly she was, but
she was sort of like this. I can't say this. To say she was a goddess of gold is extremely oversimplifying it because we don't have very much on Golveg at all. Because she's in there for like 4 lines. The only thing we know is that she was the first one. She came to seek out the Aesir under like in peace, and she spoke of gold, and the Aesir decided there was something so disgusting about the way she spoke of it that they burned her 3 times and gave her 3 different names because she continued to rise. And it was her death that
Kind of through
started the entire war, basically.
Yeah.
So you can only imagine that. I have this idea that I do believe, in a sense, that Golvig was this different form of Freya, but beyond that aside,
I've
she was
actually
sort
heard
of
the theory
important
that
goddess
Godvig
for
might
the Vanya.
actually be Angraboda.
I have heard of that theory. I have not looked into it though.
And personally, I kind of like the idea that Angraboda and Godvig are the same. Because, all the gods, all the Jotuns, all the Vanya, the Aesir, they're all giants. They're all the same race of beings. They're just different tribes of these beings. So saying that Angraboda cannot be Godvig because Godvig was one of the Vanya, yet Angraboda was a giant, doesn't necessarily mean that she can't have been both.
right. But and a perfect example of that would be Loki.
Mm-hmm.
Loki is one of the Aesir.
But he was also a giant because one of his parents is a giant.
And he also often acts like a giant in his behavior.
Yes, that is true. But
But
personally,
also during
like
Ragnarok,
I said
he
many
also
times,
sides with the giants.
like I've
But
said
then
many times,
again,
that I see Odin, Heimdall, and Loki as being actual brothers, not necessarily full brothers. I mean, more than likely, it would just be like half brothers. But
right,
um, Loki being half giant and half Asia is understandable. But the whole idea of the Asia didn't come around until after uh, Odin and his brothers killed Ymir.
right,
Mm-hmm.
Before that, they were all Jotuns.
right. Who's to say that that they're all not like part Jotun? Because before they killed Emir, there was no Aesir.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that is also lost in time to us. Much like how when these stories were written, as you were saying before, like things were written and they may not have been a exact historical account. Even history texts weren't exactly considered historical because everything was written by the victor, still is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then also records are lost, and sometimes records just weren't kept like how they should have been.
And
Essentially,
sometimes,
what it comes down to is we're playing the world's largest game of telephone uh, with the stories of our sagas, the stories of our gods and heroes. They're being passed down through the generations over and over and over again, but every single time it gets passed down, a little bit gets changed. We don't know how similar the Voluspa in this poetic Edda is to the Voluspa that would have been told orally 1,000 years ago, 1,200 years ago, 1,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago.
At the same time, we can't really expect the gods to stay static for the entirety of their lives.
Right,
it's true.
So chances are, for all we know, as the stories change, so did they. Because,
right,
especially most of our like Odin himself would not allow himself to stay stagnant because then you don't grow. So we can't expect the others to just not. As the stories change, for all we know, that is exactly like how people would be explaining it. And as the stories change, the gods perhaps adapted to the changing needs of the times. Why is there so
Yeah.
much dust?
Heck, for a seconding on that idea, actually, for the gods changing, for example, historically, some of the gods' popularity has changed and how much they're honored or worshipped. Freya and Frigg would have been, gods of nobility for the most part and of magic. Joe Blow or Bjorn Blow, let's go a little more Scandinavian, would not have really worshipped Frigg or Freya. He'd have worshipped Thor.
Mhm.
Today, it's often
Heimdall,
flipped.
Heimdall was a very big god
Another
amongst
one.
common
Yeah.
people because he was seen as the father of humanity,
Yeah.
or rather of the classes of men. Now, I think the fact that he created
Always
the
paying attention.
men
Hmm.
is he's the father of the classes of men, literally, but he could also, since he is, in my belief, Odin's brother, he played an actual hand in the formation of the first humans.
exactly. And then also like what Isaiah just said too. He said the Norse depicted the gods in their worldview, and we should do the same.
Yeah, there's
Because as the
also
worldview changes, so do the gods.
Heimdall, the father of capitalism.
it's true though. In our modern worldview, he's the father of capitalism.
Kind of.
Oh, I'm never going to be able to unsee that now.
I mean, all right, hear me out. If we're going with that thought already, Thor's the god with the hammer already, right?
Yeah.
Sif's a god of fertility, right? What do you use to harvest wheat? A sickle.
I knew this was going to make Thor is the father of socialism
Comrade.
or communism. What fuck?
Well, comrade, let's go take out the Jotun.
Oh,
Let's fight Jotun. Take their and take resources and return
Comrade.
them back to Odin.
In my hall, we shall seize the means of production. And we shall overthrow the Jarl.
what? Is it the game or is it the god communism talk?
And there goes Jesus' girlfriend being like, what the hell are you doing?
She's looking at a video game for something called Boyfriend Dungeon that showed up on her YouTube page. And I thought she was laughing at our communist god jokes. I was kind of hoping it was the communist gods.
Comrade, this is no laughing matter.
Isn't it though?
Comrade, come come get me into production with
It's a
us.
laughing
Straight to Gulag. Straight to Gulag.
Straight to wait, no, would it be a gulag or
Niflheim.
Yeah, Niflheim. Straight to Niflheim.
You got Joe down there. I mean, like, you got his family from the KGB. Oh, they'll just take the Jotuns and throw them in Siberia.
Right to Siberia.
Right in Siberia.
Go smash a rock.
Straight to jail. No pass go.
No pierogies for you.
Cheese will be tortured like torture in general.
Cheese will walk in there and punch you to death.
She has no idea how many torture sessions she's going to do on you because she can't count.
Nope.
One day Cheese will actually learn to count. I will make it that she does. One day. She can count to 5 now. That is progress. Anyway.
Back to religion.
Back to religion.
Yes, back to religion. Good sir.
Would hedonists be only believing in Odin?
Yes, that's what Isaiah just said.
It's just like I feel like there would be other gods that hedonists
No, that's actually not. That's the wrong term.
would follow. You know, isn't it
That's the wrong, it's not hedonist.
See, hedonism isn't
It's
that like
monotheism.
life of pleasure?
Yeah, hedonism
really
is about living a life to give yourself every possible pleasure, and that's it. You just live for pleasure. Now, monotheism, which is what Isaiah is
Yep,
mentioning,
that's what was my thing.
when a person is a polytheist, but they worship one god to the exclusion of others. Another term that works for that is monolatry.
Monolatry.
Haven't heard that one. I've heard henotheism plenty of times.
Yeah, I've heard henotheism, but not monolatry.
Explain henotheism then. I have not.
Basically,
so
a mention of a patron god, and that's it.
Monolatry
okay.
is monotheism that accepts other gods exist, but absolutely denies any power or worship or anything to any god but one. They choose one. They have one specific god that they worship, and fuck all the others, basically.
Damn, that's quite a statement to make.
I mean,
Yeah.
it depends on the person's attitude, but yeah, you don't interact with any other deity.
There's
I get the smoke.
there's a common trend amongst white nationalists within the United States and many other countries, and especially amongst white supremacist white nationalists, where they basically will practice a form of Norse pagan Christianity hybrid, theism. Basically, they take Christianity and replace God with Odin and worship Odin and Odin alone. And that's why, like in the United States, the term Odinism has a really bad connotation because some really big white supremacist organizations used the term Odinism to explain their religion, which was basically just worshiping Odin and Odin alone and preaching hate and white supremacy.
And for those who, what I don't understand is, and for
It
those
is,
who are-
Isaiah, it is not uncommon to find pagans that'll have the Christian God or Jesus within their personal pantheon. That is actually common. That did happen in the pre-Christian times. It was
Centuries.
essentially the pre-Christian Nordic and Scandinavian peoples, Norse peoples, they believed that the Christian God was just one other God. So why not
why not
and add that God into their practice? That was one of the reasons that Christianity was able to take over as effectively as it was, because they were managed to get the pagans to add them in to their pantheon before they were even like converted to Christianity.
Yep.
Yeah.
A couple of the big early Christian kings, they would, if you look on, say, something, it would say they're Christian, but I believe Harold Bluetooth is a good example. When he was at home, he would only pray to Jesus Christ. When he was at sea, he'd pray to Thor. And
Which
assuming for other situations,
I
other
would,
gods.
I would more pray to Njord.
What's up, buddy?
That was his choice. That was what I read, if I
Yeah.
recall correctly.
And Goat, you might want to see if someone's waiting in the backstage.
Wait, there's someone in the backstage. Who's?
There might be someone that might be trying to join.
I am not. How dare you? I see. Angry Cloud, how dare you say that?
I'm confused.
I am never tired of her shit. Okay? I love dealing with my girlfriend's bullshit.
That's not the only thing you like playing with.
This is not talk about Jesus' relationship moment. That is not what this is about. Let's go back to talking about the gods. I know you're confused, baby.
Okay. So to kind of steer this back to the original conversation, so the big thing about the Voluspa is that it is essentially a giant prophecy. And it is this prophecy that spurs Odin into taking many of the actions that essentially make Ragnarok inevitable. If it wasn't for Odin, for this prophecy, Odin wouldn't have bound Fenrir. He wouldn't have sent Hel to Helheim. He wouldn't have thrown Jormungandr into the sea. But this prophecy instilled Odin with fear of the possible outcome, of fear at the end. And so in a bid to prevent it, he sealed his own fate.
Well, that's what happens to everyone who has ever read a prophecy. That's the problem with prophecies in general. You hear the prophecy and you hear something bad will happen, you immediately take it's like that old Greek story of what was
Oedipus.
it? Was it Oedipus?
Oedipus.
Yeah,
Oedipus.
he heard he was going to end up screwing his mom and killing his father, and he worked hard to not have that happen, and it happened anyway, inadvertently, because of the actions he took to try and stop that from happening.
Right.
And because of that, you make it inevitable.
And further back on that one, his own parents caused it as well by not outright killing him and leaving him out for abandonment, which he was then adopted. Happenstance by a king.
That too. But like, in the end, the prophecy feels like the Voluspa feels like one very large lesson in
Man, Freud would have. I would have had a lot of fun with Oedipus.
I'm sure he did.
The Voluspa feels like one very big lesson in searching for answers that you just shouldn't know, perhaps. See,
I'd
it's
agree.
going a little too far in trying to seek your wisdom, which if there was ever a person who, of course, went too far looking for wisdom, it would be Odin.
Odin.
He goes in
absolutely.
looking for answers for something. He gets these answers, and because of that, he takes every wrong decision, which he thinks is the right decision, but it's not, because it inevitably creates the exact thing he wants. He is trying to stop the inevitable change. He tries to get someone to answer, to tell him what's going to happen so he can change it, and inadvertently creates the exact thing that's going to be caused. And perhaps that's why by the very end in Ragnarok, it's Loki who's leading the charge against the gods. Because Loki is, as we've agreed, that all-powerful chaos, that massive force of change, good or bad.
Right.
And in the end, all Odin is trying to do, despite all his wisdom, despite all his, the idea that in order to change and to grow, you have to have wisdom, he's trying to keep things static. And in the end, chaos can't allow that to happen. Change will happen, whether you like it or not.
I mean, Odin does say in the Havamal something along the lines of, I don't remember word for word, but paraphrasing, that one of the worst things you can do is know your own fate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There it is right there. The
correct.
Havamal says that you should always be moderately wise and never too wise, because a man finds happiness in himself when you are moderately wise. And perhaps that is why Odin is always thirsty for knowledge, because he is never satisfied, because he's already gone too far for wisdom.
Yeah.
Now he knows what will happen, he cannot change it. And every day
It's
pain.
not that Odin can't change things, because all right, when the Norns carve fate into the roots of Yggdrasil, they are not carving every little decision or every little action that one takes. What they are carving are the highlights, the key points, the bulletins.
They're pretty much the writers of the Spark Notes.
Right? They're writing down an outline, essentially. And it is up to the individual to fill in the blank spaces and to figure out how to get from one point to the other. So you do have free will, but the problem is that there are certain events that are fated to happen, but the way that they play out can change depending upon the actions and choices that you make. So since, as I stated before, Ragnarok is far more likely to have been a cyclical event than a one-time event, it could be that Odin is continuously trying different ways and different methods to try and prevent the fall of the Aesir. Or maybe he knows ahead of time that they must fall and that they must all die in order to be reborn. So it could be that he, as well as Loki, are both well aware of fate and of what needs to happen. And so maybe their actions are all in an effort to ensure that events play out certain ways. They don't have power, they're not all powerful, so they can't sit there and make sure that everybody makes the same exact decision every single time. But maybe they are there trying to guide things subtly from the background to ensure that these key events happen, even if they don't happen the same way every time.
Now the question on my mind is, had he not gone to get this prophecy, would they have still happened the same? Because we know part of the only reason most of this stuff happens is because he
Yes.
If he had decided to not look,
I have a good explanation for this.
It happened far differently, I bet.
The prophecy was not revealing any information that he did not already know. It was confirming for him what he had already learned.
Right.
Remember that when Odin sacrificed his eye at the well of Mimir, and he took that drink, he gained wisdom. He saw far. He very well could have seen fate. He could have seen the progression of the cycles and seen what was to come. Maybe he doesn't have a full picture. Maybe he can only see parts. Maybe the prophecy of the vulva was just him filling in blanks, trying to get a clearer picture.
Right. But the vulva wasn't giving him anything.
His eye, I believe, gave him the ability to see fate, since his eye rests at the bottom of that well, along with Heimdall's ear and Loki's tongue.
All they're missing is a nose.
Let's say in the end, even if it would have happened, it would happen far differently because of certain things not happening. You know, for instance, Tyr would still have his hand. Fenrir would have never been bound, and therefore wouldn't have been an enemy of the gods. But the gods would have still probably been fearful of him.
Now, I do actually have a theory, though, too.
Loki wouldn't be bound.
Yeah. But I do also have another theory that me and my brother were discussing, was that if they didn't bound Fenrir and actually made friends with him, they could have averted quite a bit.
I am very glad that you guys brought this up, because I was going to. This is a bit my PG, just a fair warning. This is my own personal gnosis that I'm about to reveal to you all. I believe that Ragnarok happened around the time that Ragnar died. All right. So
Ragnar Lothbrok?
Yeah, Ragnar Lothbrok. Around the time of the Viking Age. I think that fits, because the rise of the Viking Age and the fall and its sudden abrupt end just feels like it fits with the way that Ragnarok would have played out.
Right, and also look at Ragnar's name, Ragnar and Ragnarok.
Yeah, anyways. So the point I'm getting at is that I believe that the age that we are living in currently is a new cycle. And I don't believe that we are near the point where Ragnarok would happen again. However, what I do believe is that there is something different happening this time. I believe that the gods have decided that on this go-around, they are going to take a different approach. Not necessarily that they are going to turn around and not bind Fenrir or not bind Loki. But I think that on this go-around, they're showing at least a little bit more respect and understanding towards them. And I think that little bit of a change, just that little bit of extra understanding or respect, could lead to a different way for Ragnarok to play out. Maybe Ragnarok would play out this time, but Fenrir and Loki will be on the side of the Aesir. Maybe it would be the Aesir that win Ragnarok this time versus the Jotuns. Or maybe this time they'll still be destroyed, but they won't be destroyed so utterly. Maybe a larger majority would survive. But I think it's important that we acknowledge the fact that in society today, and amongst many pagan communities, gods like Loki and Fenrir and Jormungandr and even the Jotuns all have gained more prominence and are receiving more veneration than they were in the past, or at the very least that we have evidence for from the past. So I think that the fact that people are venerating Fenrir, that they're honoring and worshiping the Jotuns as well, I think that that is a good sign that steps are being taken, not just within our own communities and societies, but within the realm of the gods as well, that things might play out in a much different way, or even just a slightly different way. But I feel that however it plays out, I feel that we are living in a time of vast change, a great upheaval to the cycle of events unlike we've seen before. And why do I say this? Loki. Look how prominent Loki is in our world. And yes, I am including the Marvel version of Loki in this because I absolutely do believe that the god Loki laughs his ass off about the Marvel version of him. I think it entertains him. And
Thor has a different opinion, I'm sure.
I don't think that.
I don't know. I think Thor has a very much loves watching the version of Marvel's version of Loki get his ass beat in a lot of the earlier movies quite often.
I'm sure he
The
does.
thing is, I think Thor doesn't like it when he's in his little depressed state, like just sitting in a cabin, like drinking beer with his belly hanging out. Like, fuck you guys.
First of all, we all know Thor has done that at least once, just sitting there being like, beer.
Like,
And then
no,
immediately gotten up. But like,
yeah, but I'm
let's
talking about him being a depressed,
world.
like depressed son of a bitch.
Thor's dark world.
Well, the point I'm getting at is that I don't think that Loki would turn the attention away. I think he'd be more than willing to accept the attention that the Marvel version of Loki brings to him. Because if I can call back real quick to a video that was done by Jackson Crawford a while back about the name of Loki. And in that video, he postulated that there has been some theories going around, or I should say not really theories because it's commonly accepted in scholarly circles, that one of the names of Loki was the most loved of the Aesir. And I've mentioned this on a few occasions. And I think that because Loki is the most loved of the Aesir, he's a bit of an attention whore.
I would say that for the back bit where you're saying Loki's gotten a lot more attention in this era than in history, I'd say a lot of it has to do with the fact that in history, say during the Viking Age, for instance, chaos was a relative norm. A simple 2-degree difference in the weather meant your crops failed, like in global temperatures meant your crops failed, your crops succeeded. And if I'm average, Bjorn the farmer, I might live or die based on that. And so chaos is terrifying. Whereas in the 21st century, we often feel that our lives are a little too regulated. And so we want just a little bit of chaos. Not too much. We don't want to die, but just a little bit of chaos.
Just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit of fun. Like,
Then,
spice.
The thing is, then you have me and Cheese here, who we run into burning buildings for fun.
we run into burning buildings for fun.
Spice.
It's
Charcoal
true.
spice.
People, we live in an age where it's like, there's got to be, we are trying to find more and more dumb ways to like express ourselves because most of our lives are pretty heavily regulated in one way or another, whether it's self-regulating, because, we live in a society, or, you have a job, like that.
The job and the law.
You have to
Your
obey
family.
the law. You have family issues. Not everybody gets to be as out and proud about being a pagan as everybody else. So you may have, there's just a whole bunch of things. So you have to be pressed down.
Right.
And like we mentioned right at the beginning of this stream, history is written by the winners.
Right.
But people who are looking back on history, they're going to interpret that winner they're going to interpret a different method of who's the winner. Loki may not have been the winner back then, but people see him as more of the winner now.
Right.
Horror to me.
What?
I don't know. Isaiah just wrote horror to mer.
Isaiah was saying that he was thinking that Balder would be the more likely to be the most loved of the Aesir. And while Balder was definitely the most adored of the Aesir, he was not the most loved. Because the wording that was used to say the most loved of the Aesir gives more of a sexual connotation.
And
Yeah, because I was going to say, in the more sexual connotation, I would say that'd be more Freya.
Yeah, but like no one needs
No,
to do
no. Freya,
wink, wink with Freya. She has sex. No one needs to bat around the bush with that.
yeah, she has sex with a lot of people, including Loki. But Loki had sex with everyone.
All the goddesses and possibly some of the male gods.
All the goddesses and a good number of the gods.
I can see that happening. He definitely did. 2021 is the year of Loki. Probably.
And a horse.
Loki was a non-binary, omnisexual that did have a thing for ponies.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Marvel's Loki, they announced he was bi, my first thought was, wow, they're taming him down a lot.
Yeah, exactly. They really tamed him down.
Like that's all.
Really he's only bi. I
that's
thought
it?
you could have at least give him pansexual. If you're gonna be this tame about it. Loki is a pansexual, gender non-conforming brony who just wants to cause your world to burn. He is the manic pixie strange child of like all young adult fiction.
In other words, he's a lot like me.
He's a bard. He's the stereotype of a bard, but made into a god.
I'm sorry, I have to draw a line there. I'm not going outside the species.
I have standards.
Freya has slept with so many people. She has slept with Freya somehow.
Goat, listen,
I mean,
we know
if she
we
had
gave
sex
you
with
enough
Frigg,
mushrooms,
right?
you would probably try going after a tree. I'm being honest. When you're on mushrooms, it can make the tree look like exactly what you want.
Big wood.
I mean,
And you can't even argue with me on that one.
It's entirely possible, but it's not necessarily likely.
Right,
But
it's possible.
there is a slim possibility that something like that could at some point happen. I hope to God nothing like that ever happens.
Which one? Hopefully not Loki.
Heimdall.
Oh, my neck! Jesus' neck has disengaged.
Wait, that's illegal.
Actually, magic mushrooms are only upon and depending upon the specific type of mushroom. There are certain types of mushroom, depending on where you live, that do have psychedelic properties that are legal or grow wild. And we highly recommend that if anybody ever wants to go and pick their own mushrooms, you better know for damn sure what it is you are picking before you pick it.
Because then you'll be seeing someone like me.
Every mushroom is edible once.
Yeah, every mushroom's edible once.
Yeah, you want the mushrooms that you can eat more than once, though, okay? Not the ones that you're going to eat once and then end up 6 feet under.
Or like we're in the back of an ambulance with all your clothes cut off.
That's only for trauma. This would be a medical call for sure. You keep your
The
clothing.
thing is, though, depending on what's going on, we might have to cut off all their clothes just to cool them the fuck down.
Yeah.
Depends, yeah.
It's an interesting job.
It's a very interesting job. Wear your seatbelt. Oh yeah, or I get to see you naked.
It's never the ones you want, though.
Yeah, it's never the ones you want.
Go. You need to get your EMT license so we can all be licensed medical professionals.
Yeah, come on, Goat.
Come on,
All right,
Go.
guys, I'm gonna be back in just 1 second. Hold on.
Yep, take your time.
Yeah, Goat ran away in shame over his lack of EMT license.
So, who wants to ask something in the comments? We'll start talking bullshit right now because he's gone. The adults are gone. All that's left is us.
Dad's the way the kids shall play.
So, horse penetration.
Hurry, comment section. We don't have much time.
Yeah,
Come
quickly.
on, comment
before we come
section.
back.
Is the god's fifth dimension? I don't even know what the fuck a fifth dimensional being is.
What
Maybe.
is the fifth dimension then? Wait, 1, 2.
To explain fifth dimensional beings, a human being is a fourth dimensional being. We exist in a three-dimensional world, but perceive. All right, we exist in a four-dimensional world, but perceive it in 3 dimensions. Okay, a fifth-dimensional being lives in a fifth-dimensional world, but perceives it in 4, so they can see through time, essentially. Now, unfortunately, guys, I do have to go ahead and let us know that we have to wrap up our stream for tonight. We do have a video premiere that is going to be happening at 8:15. It is a live premiere, so there will be a chat. I will be in that chat for the premiere, so that if you guys want to pop over there, we'll all be able to chat with each other while the video is going on. We do have our current giveaway. Our current book giveaway. It is Runes for Beginners by Lisa Chamberlain. I will have a review coming out next week on this book. And in order to enter the giveaway,
I feel like I should be holding a pagan book.
Yeah, right. Hold up a pagan book.
Oh, you have that one too? Oh, wait,
It's a recent purchase.
mine's
well, actually,
it's
this is my same one, but I got the one on Native American from the same people. I don't know if I have the Norse one. I think I chose not to buy that one.
I found it. I was trying to look. I've seen that one. I was trying to look for how to get up, but they didn't have it, so I bought the next best thing.
And just here's another pagan book, because why not? Yeah, that one. Yep, that's the one.
Yep.
Here's another one.
Hold on.
Oh, look, that one?
The thing is, mine's a signed copy.
Oh,
Mine's a signed
fucking
copy.
good for you.
All right, guys. So
See?
this
Look what mine's got.
right here.
Look what mine's got.
Oh, wait, hang on. I have a book that has something like that.
Pulls have Bible. Don't you dare.
No, that's too far for me to grab right now. That's a few feet away. I have
Yeah,
to get up to
same.
that. I'm not standing up. How about a shamanism Bible? Will that do?
Yes, that's okay.
Okay, that's good.
And plus, geez, we know no angry cloud isn't wearing pants at the moment.
Yeah, right.
I got underwear on. We're good.
Okay, listen, we don't want to see you in your banana hammock.
All right, guys. What? All right.
Yeah.
So, in order to enter the giveaway, all you have to do is just take a screenshot showing that you are subscribed to the channel. Go to our Discord and post that screenshot in the giveaways channel. You'll find a link to the Raven's Eye Discord in the description down below. You'll also find there a link to our Patreon. All Patreon supporters do get an additional entry into all of the giveaways. They get special access to a members only section of the Discord. And as of next week, they will get an extra live stream once a month that is just for them. So,
Oh, come on. I was going with pagan stuff exclusive.
I know, but I was running out of books that were near me, so I just pulled out an ERG manual.
Here, take this book on Buddhism, okay? It'll do it for now.
Here's another emergency book.
Here, would we like a book on creative mythology?
Would you like my
And go to,
D&D
like-
notebook?
Like these guys.
How about a book on black magic and summoning demons?
I have this is the
I have
thickest
this.
book in my
Sorry.
collection.
Best I can do you is a treasury of Jewish folklore.
This is
Oh,
the Fireman's
nice.
Bible. I don't know.
That is indeed the Fireman's Bible.
There you go.
All right, guys. Enough books. Stop it.
How about a book on leadership styles from Attila the Hun?
Fuck you. I'm gonna steal that from you. Okay.
Oh, okay, so no more books. How about some scissors?
Would
So
you
Discord link is not valid, Isaiah says, so give me a moment. I'm going to pull up a new link for the Discord, and I'll get that put into the description once we get off of here so that you'll be able to click the link. Now,
put that Odyssey away?
Working on it.
so I want to thank everybody for sticking around with us and enjoying this live show of Dancing Goats and Angry Cloud. This will be our new nights. We will be hosting the show on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. going forward. And there will be a live premiere for the weekly video at 8:15. So you'll always be able to chat with us during the premiere after the show. Now, with that, I'm going to leave you guys with these last final words. Remember, there's no one true way. Skull.
Skull.
Scald.
Scald.
Puppy!